chart out a path that is beneficial to all. The history of sea erosion in Ghana has been essentially an Anglo problem. Data suggests that the Anglo coast, which is essentially the east of the Volta River, is receding at a rate 4 times more than the rest of Ghana. Even though recent studies suggest that it might even be more. Some writers suggest up to about 8 times more. Resources are not allocated in that commensurate manner, which means that the Anglo area has been left at the mercy of the ocean. So periodically, we are exposed to tidal attacks, and as a people, we've been extremely worried about government response. And there's apparent lack of government policy towards the area, because when it happens, we don't hear what we need to hear as a people from government. And we get worried most of the time because of that.
I agree.
Yet, as a people, we still believe that it is the primary responsibility of government to protect itself, to protect its people. And when and if the people of Anglo have submitted their sovereignty to the state must demonstrate its capability of protecting them. So that has been a huge concern for us. It is in this light that we are grateful for this session. As worrying as the findings that we had has been, it is important that we are aware as a people the dangers that are facing us as a result of that. And so we are grateful to the Center for, first of all, conducting this research, and secondly, agreeing to share the findings with us. We've all seen the structure is going to be a very heavy presentation. At this point, I can only entreat all to reach out to family and friends now and invite them to join. I can only expect that we participate actively by, first of all, observing the rules and listening carefully to the presentations and come up with our questions so that we can all be informed about these developments. As a youth body, we are committed to doing everything possible to ensure that government respond to our plight. And the old also say that and so we intend to start an advocacy project, a sustained one, to draw the attention of government to our plight, and also the international community, so that there can be a lasting solution to the perennial challenge of sea erosion, tidal wave attack, and flooding in the entire Keta Basin, where we call home. Thank you very much for your interest and for attending this session. I'm confident that the session will be a very productive and an informative one. Together, we can build a better Anglo, better future we want for Anglo. Together, we can achieve that. Akpenemikata, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Keta, for that insightful overview. We would appreciate at this point if you would kindly introduce the dignitaries from your side before we begin the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yes, quite difficult. I can see Dr. Koficho online. Doc, you're welcome. Togbi Achiplo, we are grateful you are able to make it to this event. I'm also grateful to announce the presence of Mr. Goswe Hanyabui, the Vice President Operations of the Anglo Youth. Other principal members of the Anglo Youth, Dr. Grant Ayayi is also here. We have Vice President Communications Anglo Youth here, Mr. Tetevi. You are welcome. We have the Executive Secretary for the Anglo Youth, Mr. Banini, Philip Banini, also on the call. I'm glad you are able to make it. From our side, that is all that I can see. My apologies if you are here and I've not introduced you. It is not intentional. I'm still struggling going through to see who else I can recognize. But that is it for now. Mr. Ernest Fiado, principal member of the Anglo Youth Council, is also here. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much.
Okay,
that
you.
Should be it from our end, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kwedo. So before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of some senior colleagues and professors from the University of Cape Coast. You are all so much welcome. We currently have about 66 participants online, and it will be time consuming to introduce everyone. So we'll dive right into the program. And at this point, I'll kindly invite the Director for the Center for Coastal Management, Professor Dennis Aheto, to give us some welcoming address. Thank you.
So good evening, everyone. The President of the Anglo Youth Council, all protocol observed. I'm deeply honored to be online this evening with all of you. Why did I say this? I've said it. I say this because the Anglo issues happening around the Keta Basin has been one of the critical environmental challenges of our time, particularly in Ghana. And as a center, we have been very much up to beat with those activities. And over the last 5 years, we have been researching on the various issues relating to biodiversity, coastal erosion, and other environmental challenges, including pollution aspects. It's been one that we have not really done advocacy on it, because as far as research is concerned, you agree with me that it usually demands some time to be able to do good work. That in our case, we even have to do some kind of peer review to really the research findings are those that we can plow back into society for decision making. This evening, I'm happy that the Anglo Council, Youth Council, has taken lead in really bringing us to the public domain to discuss some of these research findings. I'm also happy to acknowledge some very important people who independently we have been talking behind the scenes some years back, but unfortunately, we've not had this opportunity. I know Professor Sefe, I see Professor Sefe online. Professor Dr. Koficho, I've discussed a number of issues with him in the past. I'm happy that he's also online. And Professor Momade and others, I'm happy to see that they are all here. So I believe that the research that we have been engaging in at the center will provide some informed perspectives in terms of decision-making and trying to also seek some support for interventions that will be far-reaching to support the challenges that we face within the Keta Basin. Finally, from my side, I want to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Sajid Anwar. I personally invited him. He's a senior environmental specialist at the World Bank, the West Africa Coastal Area Management Program. And I'm happy that he's here. I hope that time permitting, Sajid will also say a few words. Sajid, thank you for coming, and we hope that this discussion will provide a platform for further engagement in terms of how we can move processes forward in addressing the challenges, making this a stakeholder-led effort. On this note, I would not want to take my time because there are important issues to be discussed from a scientific point of view. And I want to thank the scientists at the center, coordinated by Dr. Donatus, who is the lead coastal geomorphology engineering aspects at our center. And also the other researchers, Emmanuel Bempon, who is just completing his PhD work. And I believe some of this work that we'll be discussing projects around him. I see Dr. Fafa Jakpasu Akwete also online. She has also been leading some efforts at our center. And of course, Sika Brokwa and many other people who are here. And finally, I want to acknowledge my deputy director, Dr. Precious Mata. To be sincere, he has been in the forefront of all these, pushing us as a center to really focus on the Keta Lagoon complex. And I'm happy that we've been able to bring in quite some significant resources in terms of funding and also human resource and science into the whole discussion, where we've extended now recently also into the Avu Lagoon, which is also quite one of the very dynamic ecozones that we are trying to address in terms of some of the environmental impacts to promote sustainability and conservation of biodiversity in those areas. So on that note, I want to end here for now, and then we can continue into the program. So Joshua, over to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Heto, for the inspiring overview. And yes, we acknowledge the presence of Dr. Sajid Anwar. We have about an hour and a half more to go. As you may have seen from the program outline, we have two presentations. We have two presentations and a remark by Dr. Donatus Anure. And questions will be asked, or there will be some discussions after the two presentations. And so at this point, I would be glad to invite Dr. Sajid Anwar to give us some remarks if he is available. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Joshua. I'll keep it brief. I'll just say thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to see the presentation and hear the results of the research. And I look forward to staying engaged. And Keta is, as part of the WACA program, the West Africa Coastal Areas Program, it is one of the sites that are being financed for interventions and under the WACA program, where Ghana is set to hopefully by the end of this month approve $150 million project for coastal management and coastal resilience. And of the three sites, got the Keta Lagoon area and the basin are indeed one of the three priority sites. And we're really at the beginning of identifying the measures that will be supported by the project. So this is a really excellent time to connect on this issue, because this type of work can have a direct impact on the ground in the area within these next few years. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Sajid, for the remarks. So at this point, we invite Dr. Donatus Anure to give us remarks. Thank you. Donatus, over to you.
Joshua, can you enable the sharing?
Okay. Just a sec. So I need to stop sharing so you can share. Yeah, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Good evening, the Anglo Youth President, and all protocols observed.
Can you share? I mean, how do you use the wine glass icon to blow up the presentation?
Okay. You see okay now?
Yes, it's fine.
No.
Thank you.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, so it's supposed to be remarks, but I just feel like sharing some observations that I have made and the team has made over the years at the coastline of the Volta Delta. So I will just give a brief theoretical background. Usually what we want is that the beach should remain stable, but this does not always happen. We know that as Terry said, the present beach state always depends on the antecedent conditions. So we have the waves which happen, the history of the waves will lead to something we expect in the future. So, and it also depends on the shape or morphology of the exact beach that you are dealing with. So it's very difficult to always have a stable beach. And one of the key reasons is that there are several inputs, rivers, human activities, and natural factors that affect the inputs. And we have several outputs too that take away the beach system or materials on the beach that lead to the changes that we have. So in real terms, it's absolutely difficult to have a very stable beach. And so if you look along the entire coastline, you will notice that there are various degrees of degradation. Previously, we knew where erosion was occurring, but as I would say recently, now we don't know where erosion is occurring. In other words, erosion is occurring everywhere. So as you will notice, we have in red, erosion risk along the coastline of Ghana and flooding risk along the coastline of Ghana. We know some places are eroding more than others, and along coastline, I would like to start calling it the Delta coastline. I assume from the river map to Aflao as the Delta coastline. So permit me to use that one for my presentation. So the Delta coastline is not an exception, and we have severe erosion and flooding at some portions. Now, we know that there have been several interventions that have been done along this coastline. We can talk about the Atoko sea defense, we can talk about the Keta, we can talk about the Blekusu sea defenses. But those of us who go there and those who stay there, you are still aware that the situation is not completely stopped. We still have erosion, particularly at areas that we do not have these protective structures. So the center has been working there, not on the entire Delta coastline. In fact, since 2018, we have had a project at Jita. And what we were doing at Jita, we were collecting drone imagery over 2 kilometers of the Jita since 2018. And initially we installed a camera there, but unfortunately the complexities of camera installation didn't allow it to survive till date. But we have been doing monthly drone flights at Jita. And we use that data to estimate the evolution of the Jita coastline. This was on a short scale, but we noticed that it was very important. So this year we have decided to start looking at the entire Delta. From May, we have been collecting several data sets on the entire Delta at 16 coastal communities. And as you would see in this figure, we have from Aflao to Fuveme. This picture actually shows the sediment size variation along the entire Delta. What we know is that this particular parameter will have a significant influence on the amount of sediment that can be transported. So the smaller the sediment, the higher the chances of it being transported. If you look, usually the D50, which is the medium sediment size, is what we use to actually determine whether the sediment can easily be transported. So areas that have very low, the middle bar is actually the D50. So areas that have very low D50 have very high chance of being eroded, or the sediment is having high chance of being transported. We also do topographic surveys. What we mean is that we want to see how the beach is narrowing We want to also see whether the beach is decreasing in terms of elevation. So the entire delta, we are now monitoring the entire delta. So we do monthly topography surveys. What we do is that we start from the vegetation. We start from the vegetation. I want to get the screen pointer. Use pointer. Oh, sorry. No. Okay, no problem. Let's continue. I cannot see that. So, yeah, it's here. Sorry, now I got it. So, what we do, we measure from the vegetation. This one is actually.
Donatus, can you project it properly? I think it's gone smaller. We can't see. Maybe you can escape.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, but you can escape and
so
it's not
we have been doing. Okay. Sorry. Is it good now? Now let me blow it up. Sorry. Okay. Good. All right. Sorry. So I think that this thing has disappeared again. Okay.
It's fine. So, let's go ahead.
All right. So we have been collecting this data, and like I was saying, the import of this is to be able to know how the beach. When you collect this, you see which beaches are of high elevation, and as you would notice here, we have almost a very flat beach. Such a beach, once there is little bit rise in water level, the water will flow straight into the communities. So this is why we are collecting such data, and areas that are this is Fuveme. Areas that are of high elevation, we expect that they should be a bit stable. So we see that some beaches are very short. They are very narrow, in fact, and while others are also very wide. So this means there's a lot of sediment here, and this beach may take some time to erode. Even if they can be flattened, but erosion, it will take some time for it to erode up to this place. So we also installed a buoy, but I must say, unfortunately, this is not a good news. So we deployed a buoy this year also, because we know that the entire delta system needs to be understood. If you collect at one place, if you do observation like we were doing at Jita is good, but it's just a small area. So once we have data on the entire coast, we should be able to have good information and combine to give a good story for the entire Anglo youth community society. So and another thing is that if you look at only one parameter it does not help. So we wanted to see the hydrodynamics, especially the waves, how they will relate to this topographic survey sediment characteristics that we are collecting. That is why we deployed a buoy at Way. We did the first deployment. We actually had 2 community entries with all the chiefs and the chief fishermen, informed them, but after deployment, we knew some fishermen at I think around Way area or where went to remove it, took it to their house. We had to go and take it, redeploy again. And another group from Ada went to pick it. They put it in their boat, move around, fish around. We were following them. They fished for like 2-3 days, and then they returned to shore. Then we went for it. But fortunately, in July, because of the close season, we were able to collect data for the entire July. And as you see, this is the wave. We are going to use this data anyway. And but then just to inform you that these were the efforts we made so that we could provide information for the area, but it's not that easy. Initially, when it was working in July, in the morning we will provide wave conditions like the state of the sea to Sun City Radio, and they will inform anybody going to see is the sea calm or it's rough. We were doing this in the morning and then around 3 p.m. in the evening. But when the buoy was removed, we are not able to deploy because it's quite expensive to deploy, and every time you have to spend like 10,000 cedis to just take it to the sea. Apart from that, we have also tried to reconstruct the near shore and then the topography data. So we did first of all, we did some bathymetry surveys inside the river so that we will know whether it is deep or shallow. And then also in the near shore, because as I presented in the topographic data side, the slope or how gentle the beach is depends on, will lead to whether the community will flood or not. This is Fuveme, and this is around Jita area. If you look, here is quite gentle and here is deeper inside. So it is not surprising when we have so much flooding at Fuveme compared to Jita. But our interest was to have this type of bathymetry along the entire delta. If you have it, you can easily know the problems, and if there is the need to now do dredging or to remove some of the sand, then you will do it. So, but then we have done this bathymetry for 2 years. We did it last year and this year, just 2 times. But for your information, these are some of the data. This is some of the things we are doing, and now we can use this data to even give a reason why Fuveme Beach is lost, the community is lost, and then we have flooding at this community. Okay, so in all, we have a plan. The plan is that when we have now collected in-situ observation, very credible data, then we have a plan to develop an early warning system. Now we know we don't have very severe or extreme events in West Africa or in Ghana or at the Delta, but the little that we experience are devastating. So we want to see how we can use this data to develop something we call the early warning system. This is not going to be so technical. We want to just estimate when will next height or storm surge or tidal surge occur. Like before it happens, we need to have like 5 or 6 days prior knowledge. This is a very important information we want to do so that we can announce this and see whether we can reduce the unexpected floods that people experience in their homes. I think in summary, these are my remarks. So before any development can happen along the entire delta, I am actually proposing that we have very concrete information. Let us have good data and let us involve everybody and look at an integrative approach so that we will not bring development that will inure to more danger to the delta area. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Donatus, for that comprehensive remark. But then I think it sets the tone for the next 2 presentations. So at this point, I would entreat everyone to kindly take notes, and if you have questions, you have comments, you have contributions, kindly note them down. When we are done with the 2 other presentations, we will open the floor for discussions and some deliberations. So without wasting time, I will kindly invite Emmanuel Brempong to give his presentation. Thank you.
Good evening to us all. Mano, can you, your voice is a bit low. Can you blow up your voice a bit? Yeah.
Okay. Please, is my voice very audible now?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
it is.
better, but it can be improved. Thank you.
Okay.
And also put your slide in presentation mode.
Okay. Please, is it in presentation mode now?
Yes, it's in presentation mode. Thank you.
So good evening to us all. My name is Brempong Emmanuel, and I'm presenting on the case of coastal subsidence as a pertinent issue in the Keta Basin. I'm a PhD student on the ASCOR project, and this is just part of my research work that I am presenting. So I'll take us through this presentation following this outline. So in general, deltas are important coastal geomorphic features, and they are very important because they provide us with good water transport systems, fisheries, forest products, However, they are complex systems which are affected by both river tides and wave processes. Globally, deltas cover about 5% of land area and host about 500 million people, and therefore we cannot take them for granted. They are very fragile areas, and any slight modification in environmental factors changes deltas. Particularly for our area, sea level rise is something we cannot take for granted. And when this happens, it results in flooding, inundation, and this is generally because deltas are low-lying areas. When we zoom into the Volta Delta, currently the major issue that we focus on is coastal flooding. And this is obviously in the news for areas like Fuveme, Agaveji, and Blekusu. We have heard this. There has also been increase in coastal erosion, as stated by Donatus already, and even the president of the Anglo Youth Council. However, when it comes to subsidence, this has not been measured in the Volta Delta. And this is very important because it may be accelerated by a proposed oil and gas exploration project, which has been in the news over the past years for the Volta Delta. So what then is coastal subsidence? And so when I talk about coastal subsidence, generally, we are saying that it's the downward displacement of the Earth's surface. And when that happens, there's a potential that flooding could increase. And so this diagram is just to give us an overview of that. What then are the drivers when it comes to coastal subsidence? We have issues such as damming, extraction of groundwater, loading by buildings and infrastructure, and natural oxidation. However, with time, groundwater is the major contributor when it comes to subsidence. So why groundwater? So this short video just gives us an understanding of why, when there's so much extraction of groundwater, subsidence occurs, and then in effect, sea level rise causes more flooding. And so whilst you extract more water from the ground, it makes the ground very viable to subsidence. Whilst that occurs, water easily overtops and then causes flooding. And so this is also a schematic diagram I have made to explain this. On the other hand, when it comes to West Africa, research has indicated some areas that have subsidence, but have not indicated this in the Volta Delta. They only stated this in Accra. But why are we worried about subsidence? Because if it's only subsidence alone, then it's not a problem. We are worried because already sea level rise is a problem in the Volta Delta. Particularly when it comes to Ghana, we fall within the range of 3 to 5 millimeters per year. And I will entreat all of us to take note of that, that sea level rise occurs at a rate of 3 millimeters per year. Therefore, if we have subsidence in addition to sea level rise, almost the same rates, if already in the Volta Delta, we can see issues such as this happening, then if we have subsidence, then it should be alarming. And therefore, we need to take actions as soon as possible. And so this is just a short video in the news showing us some of the effects of sea level rise that have already occurred in the Volta Delta. So the focus of my presentation is to estimate land subsidence rates in the Volta Delta together with potential areas which fall below sea level. So first and foremost, I would estimate land subsidence using Sentinel-1 images. Secondly, I will subject the Volta Delta to some sea level rise scenarios based on IPCC. And then furthermore, I'll try to estimate the percentage of areas that would potentially be flooded if subsidence occurs in the near future. And so this area is not new to us. Dr. Donatus has already spoken substantially about the area, and therefore that's my study area, the Volta Delta. So the data used for this study is particularly Sentinel-1 data because it's a synthetic aperture radar and it easily penetrates through the clouds in order to give us information. And the INSA quantifies phase shifts when it hits a particular object on land, and it's able to quantify this as either deformation or uplift in the particular area. For this study, we looked at 2015 to 2021. And so this is how the satellite works. And one of the satellite images is what is shown on the right side in the blue-black color. So for this study in particular, all images that were acquired fell within the red demarcation. And about 237 images were acquired for each SWAT. In general, this was the workflow I followed in order to obtain the results. In order to show how the place would be affected by sea level rise, I took into consideration sea level anomaly, storm surge data sets, atmospheric pressure and wind, astronomical tide, and wave setup data sets. Alongside with this, I also took into consideration the use of DEMs, which were obtained from the NASA Earth Observation System data. And to show projections over the years, I used the 3 IPCC scenarios to help us to see where flooding would potentially occur in the next 10, 20, 30, in the next century, actually. And so I just tried to make a case here that the blue line is sea level rise. And if we have subsidence rate in addition, you realize that it increases the water level of a particular area and therefore increases the tendency of flooding to occur in that area. And so the BATHAP approach was also used for this, whereby the DEM is subjected to the water levels that were calculated for each year. And so if a particular year there's an increase in water level, it's observed when you use the BATHAP approach. So zooming in straight to my results. So first and foremost, I had a spatial map of subsidence. And the first thing is, yes, I detected subsidence in the Volta Delta. And interestingly, this was at a rate of about 4 millimeters per year. As I said initially, that we should take note of the sea level rise ranges in which Ghana falls. That's 3 to 5 millimeters per year. And if now we have about 4 millimeters of subsidence occurring in the Volta Delta, in addition to the sea level rise, then you should know that it's something we shouldn't take for granted. So particularly, we detected subsidence in areas such as Keta, Anyako, and some places along the Volta Delta stretch. And in order to really see what exactly was happening over the past 5 years, that's 2015 to 2022, I took a time series data for some particular sites, and you realize that at a one-time date, you have subsidence at times of almost minus 20 millimeters at one time, not on an average. Now, to see the impact of flooding by looking at the extent, we tried to do a BATHAP approach, as I mentioned earlier on. We realized that majority of the beaches would experience coastal flooding when we have subsidence in addition, to the extent that even some places beyond the beaches also would experience coastal flooding. And we try to understand if truly subsidence is really playing a role, then about what percentage of area would be flooded. We realize that if subsidence is in addition to sea level rise, we have an increase of about 14% in the areas that will be flooded. And therefore, you should imagine that if right now coastal flooding is already occurring in the Volta Delta, and there is an increase based on the findings so far, then we should be alarmed. So in general, subsidence is a norm when it comes to deltas, and this is not new. However, particularly when it comes to the Volta Delta, it is poorly understood. In the Volta Delta, there's not good data available in the Delta, because in issues like subsidence, we have to validate using some groundwater data sets. However, getting access to information in terms of groundwater level information is very difficult. We observed that the mean subsidence rate is about 4 millimeters per year. And these are usually around salt marshy areas, along the water bodies, and then sometimes along the beach areas. In the near future, the increase in global mean sea level would further aggravate flooding.
We are discussing the water erosion issue.
Already occurring during extreme coastal water level due to wave events.
The water level.
So what are the implications? In the near future, the increase in global mean sea level will further aggravate flooding events. And this is already occurring. If no preventive measures are implemented soon, the sea level scenario suggests that many areas in the Volta Delta, including natural areas, beaches, human structure, large agricultural regions, may face potential coastal flooding, affecting many multiple zones. What then is the take-home message? As our delta subsides, let us rise with resilience through sustainable practices, community unity, and forward-thinking policies. We can protect our cherished landscape, cultures, and livelihoods. Together, we navigate the changing tides, safeguarding a vibrant future for the generations to come. Let's note that the Volta Delta is not a place to visit, but it is home, particularly to inhabitants that live there, and therefore we cannot take it for granted. Thank you very much. This is my brief presentation on subsidence in the Volta Delta. I would like to acknowledge the World Bank, the Government of Ghana, the Association of African Universities, the University of Cape Coast, African Center of Excellence in Coastal Resilience, my supervisors, IRD, and the Lagos Lab for sponsoring my PhD work throughout this journey. Thank you very much. This is my brief presentation.
All right. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for that insightful presentation. It's quite scary to see subsidence happening almost 4 millimeters per year. And as sea level rises, happening at between 3 to 5 millimeters per year. And as you indicated, the combining effect of these two phenomena can be disastrous for the area. So I know people have questions, they have comments and all of that. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation of this program, kindly note down all your concerns. We'll take them in a few minutes. So I would kindly invite Dr. Precious Matan now to take his presentation, presentation. Emmanuel, kindly stop sharing your screen so Dr. Mata can share his screen. Thank you.
Can you blow up your presentation, please? We can't hear you. Maybe you are muted. Precious, you are muted. Dr. Mata, you are muted.
Thank you. Prof, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. In the world, wherever you are, we thank God for another day. And I'm happy that this program has been organized successfully, and we are sharing what we've learned from our works in the Keta Basin. The second presentation I'm giving is on water systems, biodiversity, and climate change linkages, which is a combination of 3 or 4 projects we've done in the same area, for which we want to share. Just as the data presented by Emmanuel is alarming, this one is also alarming, and we want action to be taken, if possible, now. So, okay, all right. So, yeah, to begin, the Keta Basin is made up of the Volta estuary, the Keta Lagoon, Avu Lagoon, Ango Lagoon, and various rivers, River Toji, Plikpa, Volta, Aka, Loto, and many other rivers that drains the area. And the Keta Lagoon is the largest Ramsar site in Ghana, which spans about 1,200 square kilometers. The lagoon itself is about 126.13 kilometers in length. It's a huge one. The area again is including the sandbar from Anyangui to Aflao, various islands and peninsulas on the lagoon, and on the lagoon, including Alakwef, Yaho, Dudu, Bomigo, Jidopo, and many other areas around there. Then it includes the mainland, including areas beyond the lagoons, Afiadeniba, people, Boakachi, and all those towns on the Accra Aflao Road in the area there. The Keta Basin actually has 6 district and municipal assemblies, including Keta, Anglogan, South Tong, Akachi South, Ketu North, and Ketu South. Made up, the whole area has a total population of about 1 million people. The area is very critical, as my earlier pupil who presented us have said. It's very endowed with various biodiversity species. Literature points to the fact that over 60 species of migratory birds move in the area every year. Several mammals, including Sitatunga, waterback, and other species of bats in the area. This waterback, there are only 2 places in West Africa that we find this waterback. The picture is there in the top right corner there. It's just like an antelope, and it swims and moves in wetlands. And we have it in the whole of West Africa. It's only in Ghana and in Benin. So we have it around the Avu Lagoon, which needs some form of conservation because it's a tourist attraction, or it attracts tourists wherever it is. We have different species of reptiles. We have different species of sea turtles coming around there to nest. Mangrove species. And the entire wetland is a source of livelihood for several communities surrounding the wetland. And we have materials for building, materials for energy, source of energy, and many other things. And the good thing about it is that the soil around the wetland is very rich and good for agriculture. As has been established already, the area has several threats. You see storm surges occurring, sea coastal erosion, rampant flooding, intense fishing occurring, intense extraction of groundwater for agriculture, salt mining. So the threats are actually from natural sources and then human or anthropogenic sources. So I'm presenting three major studies, as I've said. The first one that we did was the Keta Lagoon Biodiversity Project, which was led by my colleague, Dr. Fafa Jakwasu. Then the second one was Avu Lagoon Conservation Project, which was led by our MC for this evening, Mr. Joshua Adote. Then the third one was led by myself, which is a climate variability analysis study in the area. The Keta Lagoon Biodiversity Project, we actually use the framework DPSIR framework, which is drivers, pressures, state, impacts, and response framework. We try to look at the state of the environment at a particular time. What are the pressures on the environment? What are the drivers of that that are actually leading to the state of the environment? What impacts are there and what responses do we see? The study actually was done using a mixed method, using quantitative data and both quantitative and qualitative data sets to actually conduct the study. We collected secondary data, satellite imagery data, climate data, and then biophysical data, where we actually check the species available in the lagoon, and then both fishes and birds, as well as macro invertebrates on the sediments in the water. We also administered questionnaires to communities and organized focus group discussions in various communities in the area. The second study, which was done in Avu Lagoon and which was led by Mr. Joshua Adote, was also to conduct environmental system analysis of the area. We did drone mapping and other assessments, including flora and ecosystem land use surveys. We also did fauna and wildlife habitat surveys, water resource mapping, including quality surveys. And these are all efforts to actually devise ways of conserving the Sitatunga species in the Avu Lagoon area for to improve the livelihood of the people. So it's a whole work we have done and we are still doing in Avu Lagoon. Now the third one is the climate data, which we collected from two different from the Ghana Meteorological Agency, and it's actually from two synoptic stations, from Akachi synoptic station, weather station, and from Adafo weather station. The data gathered was from 1990 to 2020, which served as baseline. And we tried to project this data. We analyzed it using time series analysis, and then at the end of the day, try to project into the future for 80 years, that's 2021 to 2100. The various scenarios are actually the socio-economic pathways devised by IPCC. There are 5 socio-economic pathways, SSP1, SSP2 up to SSP5. But we actually use SSP 2, 3, and 5 to do the assessment. Just to see, the main focus of this one is to see how rainfall dynamics will affect the basin in the near future. So we assess flood and drought status of the basin. Now, the Keta Lagoon biodiversity work, we realize that human activities and natural phenomena are responsible for huge changes occurring in the Keta Lagoon. And before then, let us look at the state. As at the time we went for the study, we discovered that the low species diversity, reduced fish sizes in the lagoon, loss of aquatic vegetation, and loss of spawning grounds, increased salinity of the lagoon. Then we have declined fish stock. That was the state of the lagunas at the time we actually went for the study. What were the pressures? We found out that the use of illegal fishing gears by those who access the lagoon was a contributory factor. The destruction of vegetation around the lagoon. There was actually overfishing occurring. Salt mining was discovered to be a sort of pressure on the environment. So dependence on the lagoon by many residents, and use of agrochemicals, which is polluting the entire environment, not only the lagoon, but the environment. And we've also seen that there were cloggings or cloggings of various streams and rivers that enters into the lagoon. The drivers of this are about the fact that there is lack of alternative or supplementary livelihood in the area. So there are mainly 2 major economic activities about farming and fishing from the lagoon. So lack of supplementary livelihoods and alternative livelihoods is a major problem. Then we have rapid population growth, need for survival by families. If there are not many sources of livelihoods, the families need to survive. So there is definitely, they have to look for something to do, and they resort to the use of the wetlands and especially the lagoon. It was also found out that erratic rainfall is a contributory factor, sea level rise, and in many cases, low level of education is also a contributory factor, because we found out that if people are educated, the chance of getting better job to do was high. So these are some of the things that we noticed as drivers leading to this. What are the responses from various actors? Families propose that if they could be supported to learn trades, and if they could be supported by district assemblies to employ fisheries management measures, it will help. And then environmental bylaws in the area should be enhanced. They also propose the dredging of the lagoon and opening various streams that were plugged or blocked into the lagoon. And then it was also suggested that efforts should be made to prevent people from destroying vegetations, especially mangroves and all other wetland tree species around the lagoons, from destroying those wetland species. Then, if there are other alternative livelihood sources that could be provided to them, it will help. Relating to the second study, which is the Aflao Lagoon project, the study was actually revealing. The first one, we did land use land cover change and realized that over the years from 1990 to 2022, there are so many changes. The first change, crop, shrub land, grassland, and built-up bare land areas increased by the rates you can see on the screen, 14.8%, 11.4%, to 3.1% respectively. So bare lands have increased to the extent of 3.1. Shrubs or croplands have also increased by 14.8%. Now, tree cover and water have actually decreased by 31.6% and 0.4%. We discovered that huge and rapid expansion of the sad vegetation in the area was occurring. The sad vegetation is actually a floating vegetation. What it does is that during the rainy season, when the place water accumulates at the place, this vegetation expands and covers the land, the water body, and actually prevent the water from flowing into the down south, into the Keta Lagoon. So you all know that the Aflao Lagoon is actually directly at the northern part of the Keta Lagoon. And River Toji, for example, flow from the north of Aflao Lagoon into the Aflao Lagoon and flow out of the Aflao Lagoon into the Keta Lagoon, passing by the Agoblodoki community. So the picture you see on the screen now is the Agoblodoki community. And this channel that you see is the main channel where the Toji Lagoon actually flow through the Aflao Lagoon into the Keta Lagoon. But on the way, we realized that the channel has blocked, and various other streams that connect the Aflao Lagoon to Aflao Lagoon enclave into the Keta Lagoon have all been blocked. So what is happening is that as these channels have been blocked, there is always accumulation of fresh water at the top of in Aflao Lagoon area. This freshwater accumulation actually prevents the people from farming because the freshwater and the floating vegetation actually occupy their farmlands. So the people, the communities actually complain of lack of land to farm, especially during the rainy season. Once they complain, those at the south, which is the Keta Lagoon, also complain of not having various species of fish to catch. So it therefore means that because the fresh water is actually not flowing into the Keta Lagoon, species diversities have become low. We've also discovered that because of this lack of fresh water, salinity levels have increased and are moving northwards. From the Keta Lagoon, if you move from beyond Achiavi going to the Veme, the Veme is actually used to be a freshwater place. But when our last check, we realized that the whole place is now saline. And it will surprise you to see that we saw dead fishes there in the water, which is as a result of high salinity. When we actually check the salinity level of the water bodies there. So we discovered that salinity is actually climbing northwards. It's moving from the Keta Lagoon into the streams upward. What about the rainfall variability issues or the climate change analysis? The key thing we've discovered is that in southern Ghana, we all were boasting of double rainfall pattern, where we have rainfall occurring from April to June. Then between July and August, you have cool but no rain time. And then September, October, we have minor rainy season. The graph here shows that the rainfall pattern has changed or is changing. We are going to have from 2021 up to the years beyond. Most of the projections have shown that we are actually going to have one rainy season, which is a prolonged one, starting from April to November. The first graph is actually for the data from Ada, and the second graph is actually for the data from Akachi. Now, if you look at the black line in there, the black line is the baseline data, which is the data we gathered from 1990 to 2020, or 2019, 1990 to 2019. Then the red line, the yellow line, and the blue line are various projections. There are projections at the SSP2, which is for the blue. The orange one is SSP3, and then the blue one is SSP5. You can see that for Adan, they all follow the same pattern. And what we discovered also is that in the past, or in the baseline, rainfall, the first rainfall in the year actually occurred in February. But now, the first rainfall in the projection will actually occur in March. The main rainy season will actually start in April and move to November, end at November. And July, August, September are going to be the peak of the rainfall season for the data we gathered from Ada. When we come to Akachi, Akachi normally has higher volume of rain per month and per day. So in that case, too, in the black line, which is the baseline, the rainfall begins in February, and the rainy season actually starts in March, going and proceeds. You can see the double maximum rainfall here, the pattern, where we have the major rainy season and the minor rainy season in the black line. But when you look at the projections that we have, the blue line, the orange line, and the red line, you can see that gradually the trough we see for July, August, in the black line is actually being sealed, which means that in the near future, not too long, the rainfall pattern will just be like that of the projection for Adam, where we will have an extended rainfall season starting from March or April to November. And we've realized that mean monthly rainfall in the future, especially for Akachi, which is at the northern part of the Keta Basin, will be higher than in the past. You can see it from the graph that the volume of rainfall we'll be receiving will be higher than the baseline. Now, another thing we actually explored was the number of wet days. The number of wet days, a wet day refers to the number of days in the year in which precipitation rainfall is greater or was greater than 1 millimeter. And for the baseline, which is the black line you can see, in Adam, for example, the minimum number of days that we had rainfall was 28 days in a particular year. And then 70 days is the maximum in a particular year where we have wet days. Effectively, in Akachi 2, the wet days, actually, the minimum number of days in a year that we had wet days is 10. But I think there is some problem with that data for Akachi. So it's too low anyway, but we presented it. But what it means is that Akachi had more wet days than Ada. And at the end of the day, in getting to 2019, we have 85 days in a particular year, 2019, where rain days, wet days actually occurred. Now, number of wet days in Ada would decrease. From the graph we have seen, the projections, which are in the blue, brown, and violet lines, the number of wet days show a decreasing trend for Ada, but that of Akachi shows an increasing trend, which means that at the northern side of the Keta Basin, where streams and all things flow from, will be receiving more rain from there, which means the Keta Basin will be receiving, will have more wet days from the northern side and may be receiving more rain from there. What are the implications of this? Now, intense use of the lagoon and other wetland resources are causes of biodiversity loss in the basin. If we say biodiversity loss, it means hunger to our people. It means suffering to our people because their main livelihood depends on the lagoon. Certain species are no longer available, as we can see. The bird species that used to come there are no longer coming. Their populations have also reduced. The same thing applied to fishes. And especially in the case of fishes, we realize that their sizes have reduced. Intense agriculture also leads to chemical pollution of water bodies and poisoning of wildlife, especially in the Aflao Lagoon area where agrochemicals are widely used. We realize that the use of agrochemicals, especially pesticides, are affecting wildlife, and communities actually complain at the rate about the rate at which they see sitatungas in recent times. In the past, they could see sitatungas moving around, but now it is scarce. They were no longer seeing them during our study. When the discussions led to the fact that farming could lead to the poisoning of such wildlife species. Then we've also noticed that siltation of the lagoons is leading to low water retention. So the lagoon is actually not able to retain water. And what was alarming also is that the various islands that we see, we've actually worked on those islands, and we realized that fresh water on those islands have actually become scarce. A town like Siaho, you can't dig anywhere and get any fresh water. So they always have to buy water from somewhere. And we also noticed that reptiles or crawling animals, which could either be show proof of life on those islands, are actually scarce. You go to Dudu, you will not see any lizard, any mouse, any whatever, nothing. There is no animal except the wetland birds and wetlands birds that you can see. And most plants, which are freshwater plants, cannot survive. Now, there were a lot of mangrove reclamations, mangrove planting activities in those islands, but none of the mangrove they planted actually survived or are surviving because of increase in salinity. We also discovered that natural factors such as sea level rise are affecting, which have been stated already, and prolonged rainy season also is another thing we should talk of. Now, the two sides of the lagoon system suffer environmental malfunctioning as a result of siltation. Accumulation of fresh water at the Aflao Lagoon is occurring. Lack of freshwater nourishment of the Keta Lagoon is also happening. Choked rivers and streams are there. Communities lack land to farm at the northern side, while fishery activities have gone down at the southern side. So the picture at the right here, you can see the floating vegetation actually growing into the sea, this thing, and it grows actually to block the flow of the river. Long rainy season and lack of flow may contribute to increased flooding and may contribute to disease prevalence. Though increased number of wet days may be good for rain-fed agriculture, it may also contribute to increased flooding. What do we need now? Everybody must come on board. Stakeholder involvement could help us. And we need action now. We all need to come on board. And the key thing I also want to share is that there is the need for us to reconsider the current form of irrigation on the Sunspit in Keta Anglogan area. The overdrafting of the groundwater is actually causing a problem, as we can see in the first presentation. So it would be good if we all think through and design or devise a new irrigation system for the area. And using a drip irrigation will help, or we invite other irrigation experts to come and advise us. I was also suggesting that if it is possible, we should consider, as a people, we should consider drafting water, pulling water from Sogakope area into the lagoon, the Keta zone for vegetable farming. And pulling that water there will actually help. In that case, pressure on the underground water will go down. So we also need mandatory socio-ecological studies before coastal development works are done. Since the area is sinking, since there are so many problems there, we actually need mandatory socio-ecological studies and environmental system analysis to be done before development take place. Otherwise, we may get into trouble. So aside the oil drilling issue, exploration issue, we also heard of Keta Harbor project that is coming. And when these projects are coming, we should prevail on the parties to actually assess the system very well to help for us to be sure before we move. Otherwise, we may not know what will happen. So these are some of the issues I want to raise here. Thank you so much for the audience. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Mata. That was very elaborate. And that brings us to the end of our presentations. At this point, I would kindly entreat colleagues who have questions, contributions, as much as possible to use the chat box so we can get a lot of reactions because we have about 30 minutes to wrap up this section. So alternatively, those who may wish to speak may raise their hand using, okay, some hands are already up. So I'm going to call the hands as I see it. And I'll call you to ask your questions or make contributions. So I see the hand of McLean Tetevi, followed by Jima, Mohammed, and Christ. So in that order, please. Very briefly, you may make your comments or ask your question in 30 seconds so we can have other colleagues speaking. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is McLean Tetevi. I'm the security coordinator for Ghana Gas. And as the name stipulates, I'm coming from Tetevi Copper. I'm so glad that we are having this discussion this evening. My questions, I have a lot of questions, but let me just put it into two. The first one has to do with the PhD student who presented a very beautiful research work. I want to ask, per the research work, is there any recommendation for our district or municipal assemblies so that at the end of the day, if any investor comes to this district or municipal assemblies, they can fall on such recommendations to help boost the work that they have done? That is my first question. My second question has to do with, I am a lover of environment. And about 3 weeks ago, I was at Adan just to witness something. I realized VRA has given a license to a private company to start dredging or winning sand from the River Volta that is around the Adan area. Because of the curiosity, I follow up to the place and ask them so many questions. Because I was thinking, if indeed we really want to create that enabling environment, like the presenter, the current presenter just said, we have a lot of claimed island, very beautiful when the sea defense at Keta was taking place. But virtually, those island has turned to something else. Why couldn't we implore or get people rather to help us dredge our lagoons so that the perennial sort of flooding currently, today when the spillage of the VRA, we can all see from the social media what our people are going through, so that at the end of the day, we'll have a better place. Because if tomorrow we are no more, that is where they will send us. And if virtually the sea or the lagoon has taken over all the land, then we don't have any best place to boast of. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much, McLean. I would entreat other colleagues to be very brief so we can have a lot of reaction. Also use a chat box. I can see one Lawrence using the chat box, giving some overview. That is very important. If you have some reactions, you can start putting them in the chat box. We'll take 3 more, and then we'll, the presenters will respond to the questions. So let's have Chris, and then we'll have Wilson Tagbo, please. Chris, unmute and speak, please.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Chris Komiadika. My question is, after listening to the presentation, but it seems like there's no, excuse me to use the word, common sense solution. We all know that the floor of the lagoon is rising. So that is causing majority of the floors in the houses. I wish each and every one of us would go to behind the lodge buildings, those houses over there, and see how houses have been flooded. It's just a matter of dredging, making the lagoon deeper. I mean, this is just common sense solution. I mean, I don't know. So please, can they recommend that there should be dredging, enough dredging, clear all tributaries to this thing, which is blocking the flow of the water to the lagoon, make it deeper. So the more the deeper goes, use the more claim from the lagoon to make beds and raise the banks of the lagoon so that the water will not flow and be flooding people's houses. I'm down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for the question and contribution. We'll respond. Can we have Wilson Tagbo, please?
Yeah,
right.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I hear you, Wilson.
Yeah.
Please proceed.
Yes, thank you. The two presenters did very, very well. But notwithstanding, I am the Angular Dry Dock CEO. We are trying to put up a dry dock in Keta. We were working on this for 15 years now, and the government of Ghana has stopped us to allow them to do their feasibilities before they can give us the go ahead. So it's something that we'll be working on. But the point is this: you see, our area has so much potentials. In as much as we are trying to come up with solutions to problems, that same solutions can be put into various ways where our brothers and sisters can get what to do to bring solutions to unemployment to the area. So, and there is something, the sea level which is destroying our people is another thing that we have to look at. What should we do? We think as a company that if our chiefs and queen mothers and elders in the Keta area or the Keta Municipal Enclave can come together, and that, you know, we have a lot of quarries around us. If we can use those quarries, we say Angola has 36 states, and we have these quarries and they are standing there, nothing is happening, and government or governor is not willing to give money to us to continue our sea defense. Why can't we get investors on board, dredge this, push the sea away, kilometers away, get that land for investors to invest in, and families who has given those things out will have shares in these things. So these are simple things that we can do to bring employment without relying on government, always government to get things done for us. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Right, thank you, Wilson. Very briefly, can we take one more from Solomon? Then we get a reaction from the presenters. Thank you. Solomon Wise. So, sorry, Chris and Wilson, kindly lower your hands. Thank you. Solomon Wise, please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And good evening to my colleagues and my senior members who have presented. I want to look at as the sea erosion that is actually striking the coast from Ketu South, Keta to Angologa. When you look at the United Nations Inter-Panel Committee on Climate Change, in 2019, they released a report, and I want to capture a very important part of that report. They say that over the past decade, global warming has led to widespread shrinkage of the cryosphere, with continuous rise in global mean sea level. They continue to say that increased rates of glacier ice mass loss and ocean thermal expansion, increases in tropical cyclone winds and rainfall, increases in extreme waves, combined with relative sea level rise, will exacerbate extreme sea level events and coastal hazards. They continue to say that coastal communities will therefore be exposed to multiple climate-related hazards, including tropical cyclones, extreme sea levels, and flooding, marine heat waves, sea ice loss, and permafrost thaw. What I want to say is that when we look at our coast, especially the coast of Ghana, we have the coastline is divided into three sections. So technically, they use the term for its geomorphic sections or zones, the western, central, and eastern zones, respectively. And along our coastal strip, which spans from Ketu South, Keta to Angologa, and to the adjoining environment, you could see that before the Keta Sea Defense Project was completed, data revealed that sea erosion is happening at a rate of 8 meters per year. But after that, along our coastal strip, it has increased to 70 meters a year. So when you look at that change, 70 meters a year after, 8 meters a year before the Sea Defense Project was completed at Keta, but after that, it has increased to 70 meters a year. That's alarming. What I want us to look at briefly is that right now, the way government is dealing with the sea erosion matters in our country is not helping. What they are doing is destroying our coast. What are they doing? They are relying on reactive measures, which has to do with erecting groins and investment in the sea to prevent some sort of more erosion. But we know that coastal processes are natural processes. When you look at erosions and accretion, these are natural coastal processes that actually shape our coastline. And before any development, say building or defending our coastlines using some of these hard engineering stuff, there must be concrete scientific evidences or studies that government must use to work on. So what is happening now in our coast is very alarming. I want to end by saying that there is a way forward. Which one are we going to accept? Are we going to continue with the reactive measures like the groins and the revetment, or are we going to adopt a green system of managing the coast with nature? I want to suggest that if we can manage the coast, our coastlines with nature, it will be better for us than the reactive hard engineering method that we are using against it. So I want to encourage or appeal to our engineers, the people who have actually presented before me, that they should look at the way government is reacting to our sea erosion problem that is facing the coastal communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Solomon. So maybe we could have some reaction from the presenters. There was an earlier question on recommendations for the district assemblies for investors to help boost the work we are doing. And I think that was to Emmanuel. Maybe Emmanuel, if you have Precious, any of you can respond to any of these questions. I think the last one by Solomon was a position which is well noted. Thank you.
I want to say that we as a center have decided to actually do dissemination to various groups, and then we will, and various communities, various institutions, organizations. There are suggestions actually for the district assemblies, and we hope to meet them very soon to share our ideas with them, especially the data or the things with them. And then we will take it up from there. But I want to also stress about the fact that we have been working with these district assemblies already. In the past 2 years, we have engaged them severally. We come there, we organize conference, workshops, meetings. We discuss issues of the along the coast with them, especially with the work on the biodiversity. After the work, we took the medium-term plans of the various district assemblies and realized that there was nothing specifically pointing to biodiversity in their medium-term plan. So we have to engage them for weeks or months to actually revise their medium-term plan to include things relating to biodiversity. So we've already been engaging them, and we will continue engaging them. We are actually planning to disseminate the result of the subsidence actually to them and tell them to be aware, or inform them actually to in fact, take good actions that will help the place. So briefly, let me end it there to say that we have been engaging the district assemblies, and we will continue to engage them. And we have plans to actually engage them when it comes to relating to the new research about the subsidence and all other things that we are doing in the area.
Joshua, can I make a quick intervention?
Yes, please, Prof.
So mine is specific to what Chris mentioned. And I think that as a coastal ecologist, I just want to make clear that one can only recommend dredging if we understand the full scope of environmental impacts of those dredging activities. because we should not forget that the environment is also a habitat for biodiversity, as Precious has mentioned. It's a habitat for livelihood support of the community. You just cannot go there and put dredges and dredge. We don't do that. Nobody does that. You must subject that to environmental impact assessment, for which there are laid down legal procedures, by the Environmental Protection Agency. So please, let's be cautious in terms of how we put our recommendation. And that is why we are using this platform to share with the stakeholders what we have found, so then it becomes a basis for the discussion. So there's no one-stop shop solution, to all these issues, because dredging could disrupt the riverine processes, even connectivity to the floodplains, which can also affect fish stocks production and many other things. So we have painstakingly taken our time over the last 5 years to look at the various issues, because when it comes to coastal environments, they are very unique. They are not like land environment, or how do you call it? They are different from marine environment. They are unique environments with different but unique properties, ecological properties. So we need to study them carefully before we recommend any intervention. It's not that we are bringing out the data, reviewing literature. So I think we should take our time to look at the data, interrogate it. And this stakeholder intervention we are having today is one of in the series that we plan to do. And as Precious said, we are already engaging all the district assemblies there, So I think we should tread cautiously in terms of the recommendations that we make, dredging and all that. It may be a solution, but we should look at it within the short to medium and long-term planning. And this is really the step we want to take as a center moving into the future, with all your support, with all the knowledge, traditional knowledge and scientific knowledge and everything from you. And then we can forge ahead to get to where we want to get this story to. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Professor Heto. So I would encourage colleagues to read the chats, because there are some very beautiful responses in the chat box. You can read the chat box, and I'm sure perhaps you may have some questions which may have already been asked in the chat box, and even responses given in there. So I'll move right ahead so that some other colleagues can make some contribution, and call Jima Mohammed.
Yes, Prof, good evening, and thanks for the opportunity. I enjoyed the presentation from my colleagues. I just have a small question for our brother who presented on the substance. I was a bit curious because in his introductory remarks, he indicated that having in mind that the particular location will in the future consider or is being considered for oil exploration. And so it is likely to further as an issue of the subsidence. I thought that maybe could have also given us an indication as to how, in case that particular location is subjected to the oil further as a issue, and how to again to inward or upward movement of seawater beyond the locations which are being affected currently. This is just my small question I have.
Right, thank you so much, Jima. That question is well noted. Can we have Kofi? Kofi's hand has been up for some time. Let's have Kofi. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I'm Kofi Nyako. So, yeah, right. A quick thing. It's let's have a look at the construction of the Akosobo Dam and its effects on the Delta. Because in terms of sediment delivery, I think the Volta River has been delivering sediment for quite some time before the construction of the dam. So in this case, with low delivery of sediment may have affected the or may cause some kind of effect on the delta we are experiencing now, from a river-dominated to more of a wave-dominated kind of delta. So you have high level of erosion. So I think Donatus may probably comment on that. Yes, in terms of subsidence is quite interesting to hear that there's some form of subsidence within the Volta delta. Let's look at subsidence and excavation. At least try to look at it, because now people are excavating soils within the delta for construction. Some transport it for Accra because of its smoothness. So let's look at it. But my other important point is there's no tectonic activity within the delta. That's also something that, because areas with high level of tectonic activity may experience some level of subsidence as compared to areas that is more stable. And the Volta Delta, in terms of the underlying rocks, it's more stable. We have more of the cratons. That is one of the stable rocks that we can find within the West African sub-region. Then I would urge to at least add up to subsidence. I will urge the author, or probably the researcher, to do more of pump test within the area to look at the groundwater recovery rate. If it recovers very fast, then we should look at our work very well. But if it has a slow level of recovering, there's a gap that will be created between this, the soil and also the water level. So that one, yes, we can say some level of subsidence may likely to occur. But the last point is, if we have money, then you could use a ground penetrating radar also to give you the ideas about the geological levels, where you can now determine whether there's subsidence or not. If there's a slip, you will know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kofi Nyarko. Yes, they'll respond briefly to your statements and questions. I would want to invite a comment from Constance. Constance, yes.
Yes,
hello? Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I think the presentation were so informative, but I think I got responses for my questions that I have. I wanted to know the step that you are taking going forward, as you have a lot of data now to engage stakeholder for something to be done to the betterment of the population. But then I think Dr. Mata has responded that you have been, even Professor Aito, that you have been engaging the local authorities and everything. So I got answers for my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Constance. So I'll take Daniel, then we go, there will be some responses from the presenters. Thank you. Daniel Niedoku.
All right, thank you very much, Joshua, for the opportunity, and good evening to everyone. So mine is just some contributions and also some comments. One is on the species of mangrove that is being used for the restoration. I want to suggest that we also look at the species that we are using, because we know that the Avicennia species are able to tolerate more salt than the Rhizophora. And also we should look at the soil content. That is one. And then two, with respect to the irrigation system, I know in the past people used to harvest rainwater. So I don't know now, most of the buildings, the architecture that we do, we've neglected that. So in areas where they are not able to get groundwater, which are fresh water that they will use, I think looking at harvesting rainwater technologies will also help them to get water for daily use. And then with Mr. Solomon was also suggesting that going forward, interventions in the coastal area should look at some green stuff. So with the Waka project, I think what will be done is to look at the hybrid system where nature-based solutions will be combined with some hard structures or grid structures to actually build resilience of coastal communities. So that is what I wanted to bring. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Daniel. So I would invite Emmanuel or Donatus to respond to comments by Jima, and then, I mean, anyone else who can speak to that, to the questions they raised, please.
Okay, thank you very much for your question.
Sorry, Emmanuel, just hold on. Mindful, we have about 4 minutes to officially close the session. We may extend it by extra 10, 15 minutes so we can take more questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, your contributions as well. I think the first question to me was, what would be some of the recommendations? But before that, I would like to start from Prof. Benjamin Nwako's side. And so, per my research, they have indicated that the delta is controlled by faults. And this can be seen in Jogsen and Bonen Yakubo et al. 2001. Maybe we can, later on, you can look at it. And so if the delta is controlled by faults, then there's a possibility that naturally this could play a role when it comes to subsidence. However, we have not validated these results. This is the first time we are looking at subsidence, particularly when it comes to Ghana. And so it's subject to validation. On the other hand, the other major factor that could be causing subsidence is groundwater extraction. And I think Dr. Mata has mentioned that, and Prof, you yourself have attested to the fact that if there's a slow recharge rate, then it's possibly playing a role when it comes to subsidence. However, this study is the baseline for us to make a case that we cannot take subsidence for granted in the Delta. And therefore, we need to apply for more projects. We need to look out for more grants to do a more detailed study when it comes to subsidence. So this is my brief response to Prof. Thank you.
Okay, any response to Jima's question? Or you didn't know that? Okay. I think we'll continue. In the chat, I think there are a number of questions. I'll take about 2 of them. Lawrence makes the contribution that spillage from the Akonsobo Dam is a contributing factor to the flooding in the Keta Basin. And then Christopher is saying that to help influence advocacy positively, we should list 3 most human activities that are resulting in these challenges within the basin. And how is oil prospecting, or how influential is the oil prospecting in the offshore? So it's open for discussion. Colleagues may respond to some of these questions in the chat box. I believe many of them has been responded to. I think, Chris, your question has been responded to by Professor Heto, and that is beautiful. I would kindly at this point invite Professor Francis Momadi. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Heto, for inviting me to join you. We've been talking about this together with Bella and Professor Sefe and so on and so forth as to what can be done and so on and so forth. I want to thank you for this invitation because the research products have enlightened me a lot about what is going on. And therefore, my thing, as somebody said, was, so what is the way forward? Yeah, we have done research, and I think Professor Heto or somebody's made a comment that you can only recommend, but you cannot act. So somebody has to act as to what exactly is to be done. Because if you just leave it like that, it will occur and occur and occur and so on and so forth. Of course, some of the things have been done about the water antelope and so on and so forth. But my point is this, that there must be something, an organ or whatever it is, please forgive me, that will say, okay, collaborate with the center. This is the result you have. Now let us put it in action. What can we do? You know, and for that matter, I know I'm aware of the Volta Estuary project or something like that, but something must be done. I don't know who can do this, whether it is the Anglo Youth Council or whatever, or the traditional leaders or whatever, they should sit down with the center and say, so, okay, so what can we do? Because I know somehow I got to know that there is some World Bank funding for something. So how can we take part of that cake and get an organ or something like that? This is an institution or something that will implement the research findings, because there are a lot of things. I can see that there's a need for some research into the fisheries species, how to a whole lot of things, scientific matter that will have to be done. The question is, what can we do now to stop and to get the place in proper order, that the people will continue to farm, the people will continue to fish, because that is their work, and get rich, and so on and so forth. So this is my point. What is the way forward? Maybe the center can tell us what would be the way, or maybe recommend that maybe something has to be done based on the research that they have done. There are some recommendations, but we need to look at totality, not only dredging, but all other things put together. We need to the totality of the Keta Basin. That's what I would like to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof, for your concerns and comments. I think Solomon Wise has started answering some of your questions in the chat box. Strategic coastal management framework is one of the things he's proposing. Improvement on research data. Deliberate and rigorous research must be instituted by the government. The fourth point is asking for adopting ecosystem methods and all of that. So, of course, this can be further deliberated on. Pat Agbos indicates her question hasn't, or his or her question hasn't been answered. So she's asking, can the east bank of the Volta Delta be raised where the dam spills into the Anglo Lagoon? Can the east bank of the Volta Delta be raised to prevent the dam spillage into the Anglo Lagoon? It's in the chat box, so I would call for reaction from colleagues. Briefly, I would want to call on Godsway. Oh, Godsway has spoken. Okay, Godsway, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm Godsway Anyabu, Vice President of Operations of the Anglo Youth Council. One of the major focus of today's engagement, I believe, is to help shape our advocacy dimensions that we want to take. But you realize some of the recommendations or interventions, even though Dr. Mata indicated that the various district assemblies have been engaged, some of the interventions cannot be enforced or changed by the district assemblies. As a major concern we have always raised about research gathering dust, I want to know if the center on your own, probably to fit into the advocacy, the larger advocacy plan, if you have made any attempt to engage policy makers at the highest level, be it parliament, the executive, judiciary, because we know some of the cases, for instance, salt mining in the basin is a matter in court now. So have we made any attempt to communicate some of our research findings to those who made policy at the highest level?
All right, thank you so much, Godsway. I'll call Pat and finally call Professor Heto to start responding to some of the questions. Thank you. Pat Agbos, your hand is up, please, and your mic is unmuted, so kindly speak. If you
thank you. My name is Pat Senyo. I'm from the Some district of the Volta region. We have a lot of flooding My question, the first question I would like to ask based upon this afternoon session is what type of chemicals are affecting the fish life or biodiversity in the lagoons? If we know, we can then approach our fishermen to stop using this type of chemicals. Question number one. Question number two, I mentioned it earlier, the sedimentation, when we are desilting the lagoons and the delta, the sediment should be reused to raise other parts of the district or region, including the east bank of the Volta River, where anytime the dam releases water, the water goes into the lagoon, and it's not only at Angoga, the water goes all the way to Agbozume and Aflao, and it's causing a lot of flooding in my district. Those are the two issues I have today. And then also we hope that you will make the recording of this session available for us so that I would like to do more studies on today's presentation.
Right, thank you so much, Pat. Okay, I see an iPhone. He's, sorry, Professor Head, 1 minute. Yes, go ahead on mute and speak. Right. No, you are still muted. Okay, I think it's better now. Yeah, you may speak, please.
Hello, my name is Theodore Markham. I come from Keta. Now, I observed that there's a huge project taking place in Benin and Togo. Under this project, huge tracts of land is being recovered with sand from the sea. And I understand it's funded by the World Bank. Are we likely to benefit from this? Or is there any possibility of us also benefiting from this so that we can recover the lost coastal area of our environment? Thank you.
Sir, please, your name, sir.
Theodore Kofi Markham.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. So, Professor Heto, please, you may begin responding.
Sure, thank you very much. I mean, starting from Markham's question, I think that's why we invited Sajid Anwar, because he's one of the top guys or the lead, one of the lead consultants for the bank, actually the senior environmental specialist. So he will be the best person to explain those dimensions. But coming to the question as to what next, and what the role of our university or center could be. The Center for Coastal Management, which is also known as ACOR, which is the Africa Center of Excellence in Coastal Resilience, is not a typical academic department, as the case may be. We focus on applied research that is demand-driven, like what we are doing with Keta. And then secondly, we also engage communities and policy. So we just don't end there. We take it steps further, where we engage the community as we are doing. This is one of our mandates as a center, engaging community members in terms of our research findings by way of education and sensitization. But we also engage policy. I mean, there are several engagements we had with policy, including parliamentarians. We have had engagements with, how do you call it? Government officials at the level of the ministerial level, and even at the level of the presidency. We've done this in several different fora. Just to mention quickly, one that is coming up is the Blue Economic Conference next month, from the 6th to the 8th, where we are going to host nearly 250 policymakers, development partners from across the region, not just Ghana. It's happening in Accra. And so these are things that, let me also give one classical one that we have contributed to, the institution of the closed season in Ghana. The science behind that was primarily championed from our center. We contributed to the science to inform when the sea should be closed and all that. So we do quite a lot of things behind the scene to inform policy. So in relation to this, there were so many calls to our center from the Anglo community, and it looked as if we were not responding. But as I mentioned, whatever information we put out within the public domain must be informed by science. So more often than not, we are not in the forefront of media campaigns or media advocacy where there is no data or information available to express the science or the impact of the science. So we are normally on the quiet and come out when we do have the information. And so that is how we operate. That's the modus operandi by which we go by. However, to some extent, we are quite influential when it comes to working with development partners. And so, I mean, that's one of the reasons why the World Bank actually works closely with us, because of our knowledge base when we do this. So I think I will leave it there. But specifically, this will not be a one-stop shop. I think we need to have a series of activities, including physical and online meetings, to really advance this effort in terms of where this research, or where this research can take us to. We should also be able to project this at the conference where relevant state agencies are going to be available. I know the World Bank is a key partner to this conference and many others. So this discussion is going to be taken forward. By and large, our center, we would also commit resources the best way we can in terms of training and research capabilities that we can draw into the program for the Keta Lagoon. So that, because without the research, we cannot make research data, we cannot make good decisions. And the decisions must be based on data that is interrogated by all. So I think I'll leave it here so that we have the assurance that we will always be available to provide the needed data to support our discussions, and of course, also taking this to policy, where as far as we can. We are in strong partnership with the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, where the WACA program is hosted. And I'm even happier to say that the environment and social safeguard specialist there is trained at our center. Daniel Doku is online with us. He's one of the lead, or he is the social environmental safeguard specialist for the WACA program for Ghana. And we are proud to say that he's a student of ASCOR. So he also knows some of these issues. And I hope that he would not depart from supporting some of this intervention while saying that the WACA program is for the entire country of Ghana without exception to the Volta region. So I believe that there will be quite some significant support to what is happening in the Volta region. But I think with your permission, I will invite Sajid to say some words in terms of where he sees this research, what this research can be used for in terms of how WACA sees the interventions moving forward. Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you, Professor Heto. So I don't know if Sajid would want to make his comment now. Yes, so Sajid, please, you may speak freely. Thank you. I don't know if Sajid is online. Okay. Sajid is not online at the moment.
Quick question.
Okay, I think that this will be the last, but one of them we take a Sigbako, then I think we can wrap up the session. So, Professor Heto, Sajid is not online, so
yeah. So maybe Daniel, would you want to say some words because you work for the WACA program?
Yes, I wanted to ask, when will the WACA program start in Ghana?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Prof, for the opportunity. So the WACA project is actually a loan that the government of Ghana is seeking from the World Bank. And as currently as we are talking to you, Parliament is on recess, so the loan has not been approved yet. We are hoping that it will be approved. So when it's approved, then effectiveness of the project will take place. So as I talk to you now, I can't give you exact date because Parliament has not approved the loan yet. And with respect to the interventions here, so the WACA project is actually going to look at 3 main sites for now, even though there will be some feasibility studies in other areas. So for the 3 main sites, we have the Densu Delta, we have the Kole Lagoon area, and also the Keta Lagoon complex, looking at Ketu South, Keta, and then Anloga. So last month we were in some of these districts to actually meet with the officials, and we visited some of these committees that are being mentioned here, and we have already done some screening exercises. So we are just trying to do the preparatory works so that when Parliament approves the loan, then we can kickstart, and then we'll be coming to your communities to actually learn from you and to together know what best will fit each community to build the resilience of the community. So that is what I'll say for now. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right, thank you so much, Daniel. I would quickly invite Sigbako and finally Emmanuel across, and then we wrap up the session. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, Prof, thank you so much. My name is Christian Bako. I'm from Anglogan Donobo. I'm looking at the health aspects of this, the health of the people, as for that matter, the public health. What are the measures that are put in place in terms of health? Since the government of Ghana and the World Bank is involved, I just want to bring some information out from World Health Organization report 1995. The executive summary says the most derogatory disease all over the world is poverty, and those who cannot survive it, the only way out is the grave. And those who are able to survive it, living is more than a punishment. What are we doing to talk to the people about their health education for the people, and poverty alleviation, for that matter, eradication in the area, the Volta Delta? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christian. Can we finally have Emmanuel across, please?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, this has been a very good eye-opener for those of us who came from the region. I come from Anyami. I just want to know the presentation made by the student, the PhD student, on the subsistence level, whether the data was purely a measure, a physical measured data, or whether there is some simulation to safeguard the measured data. That is what I want to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Emmanuel will respond to Brempo. You respond to Emmanuel's question. When you respond to Emmanuel's question, I'll make a statement and I'll invite Professor Heto to provide a final overview to close this discussion. Thank you. Emmanuel Brempo. I don't know if he's dropped out of the call. Okay. So yes, I think I could, is Donatus online? Maybe he could provide some input, but it was purely a physical data that was used, and definitely the system can be simulated to let us know what would happen in future scenarios in the next 10 years, 50 years, or 100 years. So that is possible. On Christian's question on health, I'm not too sure that is in the domain of the Center for Coastal Management. But of course, if we embark on community outreach and then sensitization and extension, we can broadly cover these areas. And so, as it has already been said, this is one of several dissemination workshops that we have begun. So probably when we have the discussion with districts, assemblies, they may be able to take this up so that their public health units can make adequate interventions. So before I hand over finally to Professor Heto and then Mr. Pedro, there is an interesting statement by Light Agwetaka from Düsseldorf, Germany. He says, I'm happy we are discussing these difficulties. We also need to think about the situation. Let's think about relocation as well. And he puts a website there, a link to a website there. and it says it's coming soon. Let's get prepared for moving gradually to relocate our people. And so there is a link there. It's accessible. You can click on it and see what he's talking about. So this and more what we can see in the what's the name in the chat. Now there are comments or questions on whether the recording will be available. Yes, the recording will be available. It will be loaded in the cloud, and a link will be shared with everyone that you can access later after this discussion to further review the documents. So I'm inviting Dr. Precious Matter to give a final closing remark, then followed by Professor Heto, and then finally would have Mr. Ken Akpedo. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua, and thank you everybody for participating in this evening's program, the first of its kind. I'm so grateful that when we invited you, you actually came and participated. Thank you so much for your contributions. One key thing I want to stress here is that Anglo has so many educated elites. They are people who are learned professionals and all over and in every field. And this is a call for all of us to come together to work at responding to various environmental and social challenges we face. They are not just for fun. We are actually calling on everybody to come together to support the Anglo Youth Council, so that, especially the fact that they have formed an environmental advocacy group now. Those who are capable, those who are professionals, please come on board and let us help to bring the place back to normal. It is a very good place. Tourism-wise, it's a very lucrative place, and all that. There are economic activities can go on well in the area. So for me, the first meeting of this first dissemination is actually a call for us to come together to find solutions to the myriad of problems we are facing us in the basin. Thank you so much. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, Dr. Mata, for your closing remarks. Can we have Professor Heto?
Yeah. So Joshua, thank you very much. As a coastal ecologist and looking at the data that has been presented, all that I can say is that there is certainly an aquatic environmental crisis in that region, or in that part of the Keta complex. And I think that this is unfortunate, despite the enormous potential or opportunities in terms of livelihoods, biodiversity, and all the environmental aesthetics for tourism promotion and all that. This is unfortunate. And so on our part, as a center, we will continue to do our work. As you've seen, we've been working there in the last 5 years or even beyond, and we've been able to accumulate quite some good data. We are in the process of publishing these data, which we then subject them to peer review, in terms of the rigor of the data and analysis. On the other side, we will continue to advocate for sustainability and conservation efforts in that region through active partnerships with some partners that we have to see what we can do. At least we are happy that with our Lagoon project, we have some partnerships from Canada who are assisting us to do all this wonderful work. For the biodiversity work, there are other partners that we are working with. And hopefully, whatever resources we can mobilize, be it human capacity or financial, we would make them available to make sure that we can all forge forward, that looking into the future, we can have something we can all be proud of. So we rely on your knowledge, we rely on your expertise, rely on your resources to be able to do this. And let's make time for the area when we call for any meeting, be it within the districts or online. Let's try to avail ourselves despite our individual busy schedules. On this note, I want to thank you, and more so the Anglo Youth Council, for availing yourself. And especially also to my Deputy Director for coordinating all this. Thank you, and good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Professor Heto. So one final response: chemical polluting the lagoon are largely agrochemicals. And on that note, I invite the President of the Anglo Youth Council, Mr. Kenneth Bedo, for his final remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joshua. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, everyone, for making this possible. We are extremely grateful to you for finding time to share these findings with us. We are also grateful to everyone who made time to attend this session. I hope the findings, the presentation shared with us, will scare us into action. As announced earlier, as a youth group, this is just the first step. We intend to initiate a program of sustained advocacy to draw attention of the entire country, the attention of the powers that be, the attention of the international community to the plight of the people of the Keta Basin. We are inviting all professionals to join us on this fight. We know this is something we cannot do alone. So we are appealing to everyone with the capacity to join us, and let's make this a possibility. This is about the future of where we call home. I heard people talk about relocation. It's not usually a very easy discussion. The first step is to focus on preventive measures. The first step is to focus on what we can do to survive. And that is why we want to extend our appeal to everyone in any way who can help to join hands with us, to reach out to the Anglo youth, and let's partner and work together to save Anglo land. Thank you very much to everyone who made this possible. Thank you once again, Chief Joshua, for wonderfully coordinating this. God bless you all.
Thank you all so much. We started with 110 people. We've dropped to 71. Thank you all so much for the time, and have a beautiful evening. The recording will be available. You can contact your reps, and then they'll share it with you via WhatsApp. And the link will be shared via WhatsApp or SMS or email, and then you can always access the recording of today's.
And somebody also requested that it should be translated in Ewe. It was difficult because it wasn't difficult for us to translate. But then looking at the nature of data we have to present, we thought that we should just present it as it is, and so that professionals can understand and proffer solutions to the problems we have. Anglo Youth Council should actually take charge of the translation into Ewe, especially when they receive the video, the recordings, and then translate it. Or there can be other fora organized or fora organized for which these things can actually be interpreted to the people or translated to the people. So there is the need for everybody, whether educated or less educated or whatever, to really understand the problems happening in our area. So please, we'll do everything possible to let the transcript be translated for us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Have a good evening. Bye.
Yeah, let me